Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to my channel, Do Ministry Gaming, and today I want to talk about the new skill gems for 3.14 Ultimatum. Now, GGG made a post today that finally gave us the level 20 versions of these gems. We only saw level 1 versions in the reveal trailer, so we finally have the numbers on the level 20 versions, and boy, do they look strong to me. Now, disclaimer, I'm not a very strong theory crafter, I'll be honest. Especially without this implemented in POB already. It is probably a little bit hard for me to tell, at least, whether to accurately judge the power of these skills. So I'd love to hear your thoughts as well. So leave a comment below as to how you feel about these gems. But they definitely look strong to me, and the way I'm trying to gauge it is by comparing it to other skills and other damage types that already exist in the game. Just to see like a yardstick as to how powerful these actually look. I'll have a link to the post in the description below if you want to go check it out for yourself. And the other thing is, in this video, I'm only going to go over the 8 new gems. They've made a slew of changes to the Vol gems and other skill gems as well, but I will not cover here, but you can certainly go and look at yourself. So let's get right into it, and I'm going to dive right into the one of the more exciting ones of the 8, which is Reap. As far as I've seen in the forums and around the community, everyone is super hyped about this skill. I'm super hyped about this skill, and there is good reason to be, because this skill looks absolutely insane. Excuse me. For anyone who's not familiar with what Reap is a physical damage-based spell. It's an AoE spell, okay? And it's got a few things going on in the spell itself, so I guess I'll talk through them first. The first is the spell has a flat damage component to it, which is the 702 to 1053 physical damage. Then it's got a physical damage over time component, 1463 per second, which can be scaled with spell damage. And then on top of that, you can get something called a blood charge when you use the skill. If you don't kill the enemy in one shot, you will gain a blood charge, and you can have up to 5 blood charges. And each blood charge gives you 15% more damage to the skill. So at 5 charges, that's 75% more damage to the skill. It's absolutely insane. Now I'm just going to show you what the skill looks like here. I do have it loaded up here in the 3.14 reveal, and as you can see, it's just a circular AoE. And in this video here, the AoE looks really big. Okay, I don't know how much AoE this character has in the video. But if this is the base AoE, that would be absolutely ridiculous and just super OP. So this is one thing that we don't know yet in terms of the numbers. And so it'd be interesting to know how big the base AoE of this skill is. But if you can even scale it to this, it's just insane. Okay, and there's one other thing to point out that a lot of people in the community have pointed out, is that in the reveal video, the gem had an effectiveness of added damage of 180%, and in the today's post, it is only 160%. So it looks like GGG has already toned the skill down a little bit. The 180 180 is high in general for a spell, and when I saw it the very first time in the reveal, I thought it was super strong. And so they toned it down to 160, which I think is reasonable, especially with everything else that's going on. Okay, so I want to just show you how I am, deciding whether this skill gem is strong or not. So I look at the different components. There is the flat physical damage component, 702 to 1053. Is that strong or not? So I looked around. There are other physical damage-based spells in the game. Okay, Ethereal Knives, Blade Fall, Blade Vortex, probably a few other ones that escape my mind. And I wanted to compare them. And the one I decided to compare to is Ethereal Knives. Ethereal Knives is the closest thing to Reap in terms of damage, in terms of how it functions, right? EK is just an AoE spell that has flat damage that you can turn into a Nova even if you want, but it's similar that way. And here is EK, okay? At level 20, EK does 633 to 949 damage, and doesn't really do anything else. It leaves blades for Blade Blast, but I don't think really anyone plays it that way. So that's really all it does. And there are builds out there that are completely viable, in-game viable, that just scale EK in a ton of different manners, like elemental conversion, etc. And so this is enough damage to be a viable skill. Reap is higher than that. 702 to 1053. And then you get more. And then you get a physical damage over time dot, which is 1463. Okay, so physical dots are new. There's nothing in the game right now that has a physical dot that I know of. So I looked to some other skills that do sort of different types of dots, like elemental. And the one I found was Vortex. So Vortex, another skill that you can make a completely viable build out of. The cold dot on Vortex is 1456. Understandably, Vortex also does the flat cold damage as well, but the dot on the Vortex is 1456. Now, this is harder to compare. It's not like the EK comparison. Vortex to Reap is a little harder to compare, but I'm just kind of trying to show the magnitude here. Obviously, it's not a straight comparison. So it's basically, so this so far basically like EK plus a Vortex dot in one spell. On top of that, 75% more damage if you're at 5 blood charges. This is absolutely insane. And let me just check here. Back to EK. Added damage effectiveness, 120%. 160 is high. So I think I've said enough about this. This is, in my opinion, it seems super strong. Again, let me know your thoughts. I'd be curious. And I'm so excited to try this out at some point in the league. There's so many ideas going on in the head, right? Like Reap Totems or Bleed Reap or some kind of damage over time thing or, you know, even Elemental Conversion. I mean, you can play this any way you want. Stack the hell out of spell damage. This just looks super cool and super strong. All right, so on to the next one. I'll leave Petrified Blood to the end, actually. The other active spell gem is Exsanguinate. So this is a physical damage-based spell as well, but this one shoots out tendrils, and these tendrils have the ability to chain if you have chain. And what this spell does is it does flat physical damage as well. It's also got a damage over time component, which scales with spell damage. And then, like I say, it shoots out tendrils and can chain. Now, the difference between this one and Reap in terms of the dot is that this dot can stack 3 times. And I don't believe that was the case for Reap. I think it's a little unclear right now, but I don't believe that is the case. Okay, so this dot can stack 3 times. And so the ability for the tendrils to be able to chain, I think, is super cool. If you just look at the damage again here, 1200 fizz damage. That's even more than Reap, okay? And then you can stack the dot 3 times. Okay, the dot is 1100. So same thing, if I pull up Cold Snap is the one that's closest to. Cold Snap is 1193 cold damage per second. So just kind of like that same sort of vortex type thing. Effective damage, even Cold Snap, 140%, right? So these 180% on Exsanguinate. So these added damage effectiveness multipliers are very high, guys. They're solid. They're solid. And so Exsanguinate, I'm very excited about this skill as well for map clearing. I mean, 9 tendrils. Okay, so first of all, it doesn't have a projectile tag. So you can't do GMP and all that other stuff with it. Okay, I think they made that specifically like that, but it already by default shoots 9. And then you can chain it. So you add chain +9 and then get +1 chain somewhere else. And, you know, Awaken chain is 3 chains. Get another one. I mean, this thing is already going to clear the screen. And why don't we just really quickly have a look at the reveal trailer here to show the skill. And actually, here it is, the tendrils. Again, these sound like they can chain if you have it, but I think it's already chaining in the video. But actually, what's interesting that I just noticed is the gem in the reveal has 150% added damage, and it's buffed to 180%. So that is super cool, and again, looks super strong. All right, on to the next one, Corrupting Fever. This is a super exciting one to me as well. This is basically a spell that you cast on yourself, you activate, it costs you 520 life. And while you have that spell active, the base duration is 6 seconds. So you cast it on yourself, it's a 6-second buff. And within those 6 seconds, every hit that you do, every attack hit that you do, will stack a dot of 335 physical damage onto an enemy. Okay, So basically, the idea here is that you pop the spell and you try to attack as fast as possible, right? And stack as many dots as possible on the enemies. Now, every time you spend 205 life as well, the buff will be refreshed, which means kind of like Blood Rage, I guess. You know, it seems like you can just cast it once at the beginning of the map, and then you can just keep it going as long as you're spending 205 life every 6 seconds. And then that 335 fizz base damage has a base duration of 1 second, which it's kind of unclear to me actually from reading this, but I think that also probably gets refreshed every time you spend 205 life, and all of that can be scaled with increased duration, of course, right? And so this to me also seems really strong. And 335 damage per second. Let me actually, you know what? Let me actually pull up Toxic Rain. I feel like it's very similar. Pod damage. Let me just pull that up real quick. Okay. Toxic Rain pod damage over time, 285 per second. Now it is chaos damage, so it does, I mean, effectively it does way more, but 285, right? And the idea with Toxic Rain is you're stacking pods. You're stacking pods. You might have 7 pods stacked on top of each other realistically, or after you include your attack speed and increased duration and all that stuff. And this is 335. You can also probably stack Corrupting Fever 10 times on a target. It's probably realistic to do so if you build it right, especially on a boss. And so this is crazy to me. I think this can be scaled very significantly to be a very, very strong boss killer. I think, again, my theory crafting disclaimer is super weak, and until I actually have the POB and have tested the skills in the game, it's really hard for me to tell. But this just seems strong to me. All right, so moving on to the support gems, I'll talk about Arrogance first. Arrogance is a support gem for auras, and basically is the blood magic version of letting you reserve mana, and also gives you 24% increased aura effect. I feel like that's actually 20% and then the quality or something. Quality has to be in there somewhere. But anyway, it gives you some kind of aura effect, which is pretty good. But the thing to note here, I guess, so if you're not aware, they basically split blood magic, the old blood magic gem, into two. One is Arrogance for the mana reservation, and then the other is, I think, Lifetap for the skills portion. Okay. And so Arrogance is the mana reservation portion. And the interesting thing to note about Arrogance, I think, that a lot of people pointed out in the forums, is that the old blood magic had 196% mana reservation multiplier. And Arrogance has 201%. And 201% is interesting number, right? Because you can't reserve a 50% aura now with life without any mana reservation reduction, right? Because 50% times 201 is 100.5, right? And so you can't actually just have a 50% aura reserving life with Arrogance. So I think that's why they put it at that, and also to maybe increase it a little bit to accommodate for the increased aura effect. I'm not entirely sure what the implications are for this, other than what I've talked about. Moving on to Bloodthirst. I think Bloodthirst is super interesting to me. This looks really good as well, and I'll explain. This is a support gem for attack skills, okay? And every time you use your attack skill, you add physical damage equal to 2% of your maximum life if you're on low life, okay? So you've got maximum life, and if you've reserved mana and you're at low life, the skill still takes your maximum life and takes 2% of that and adds it as physical damage. And then on top of that, you're doing 19% more damage, okay? This is actually crazy to me, okay? I'm just doing some simple math here, guys. If you have 5,000 health, max health, which I don't think is unreasonable. 5,000 seems pretty good, right? 5,000, and you take 2% of 5,000, that is 100 physical damage with weapons. Abyssus adds 40 to 60, which is 50 average physical damage. I don't know if I'm doing this comparison properly, okay, for those expert theory crafters, but that seems strong to me. 100 flat Fizz that you're adding just because you're on low life is crazy, and you can scale that like crazy, right? Because you know Abyss makes builds. Of course, there's a crit multi portion to Abyss as well, but just the flat damage alone is enough to make builds. So this support gem seems really strong, and then 90% more damage. So yeah, that's all I'll say for that, I guess. Next one here is Cruelty. So Cruelty does more damage with hits. GG was very specific about the hit portion. So this is the support gem where GGG said they want the idea that it supports both a flat damage portion attack as well as a damage over time portion of the attack, like Reap. Reap has both components, right? And so this support gem actually supports both. So what it gives you is the 25% more damage to hits, so the flat portion of Reap, for example, and then it's going to give you a buff called Cruelty. Now, they did a very poor job of explaining what Cruelty is on the skill gem itself, but they did mention it in the patch notes, and so I will pull that up here. In case you missed it, this is what it said. Support skills that hit enemies, causing them to deal more damage with hits. So that's the 29% more damage. You gain a cruelty buff, which makes all supported skills deal up to 50% more damage over time, based on the amount of damage of the initial hit. Okay, so that's what cruelty does. So which means this damage over time portion of Reap can be up to 50% more. Now, they also said up to 50% more. We don't know the mechanic of which it scales to 50. How do you get to 50? But 29% more on the flat and then up to 50% more on the dot. That sounds strong to me, especially if you can make a build that utilizes both. You know, I think it will be a challenge to scale both, but I think if you do, this support gem is going to be crazy and can be extremely powerful. And then also it gives you 25% increased effect of cruelty, which probably that portion probably comes from the quality there. On to the last support gem here. This is Lifetap. This is the other part of the blood magic for skills. And so you're basically using life instead of mana for whatever skill that you're attached to. Every time you spend 205 life, you gain a buff called Lifetap, which lasts 4 seconds, which gives you 29% more damage. Okay. This one, I think this one's okay. You know, I think the what I've seen a lot in the community, which I feel like I feel like I share the sentiment of, is that 29% is a little low, I guess. And I think, at least from when I think about it, my reasoning is a lot of builds, the support gems you're putting on are 40, 30, 40, even sometimes 50% more damage, right? I think the average seems for sure over 30%. And so this one's only 29%. Oh, and also it's not permanent. You have to have Lifetap on to actually get the more damage. And then you have to do this whole life thing, right? But the way that I kind of think about it, 29% might be reasonable. And that's because this is 25% more that you can stick on any build that's missing enough support gems, right? Most of the time, support gems are very specific to melee builds or projectiles or elemental. And which one of these you do, there's sort of a set of support gems that you do. Lifetap, if you do the life thing, you can, this is 29% more on whatever build you want to put it on. So I guess there's some more flexibility, maybe, in terms of using this gem. And so maybe that's why. But so far, anyway, the idea that it's a buff that you have to keep up every 4 seconds and only does 29% more, maybe is a little bit underwhelming. But yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts. All right, so the final new gem is Petrified Blood. I did say I'd come back to this. It's basically a spell that reserves 35% of your mana and basically protects the lower half of your life, okay? So what that does is when you have this on, first of all, life recovery other than Flask cannot recover life above low life, which means things like life regen or other life recovery mechanics can't get you past low life, which is 50%. So if you happen to have life above low life, above 50%, you can only get it back using Flask. Now, the defensive layer of this is the next line, which is when taking damage from hits, 40% of life loss below half-life is prevented. Then 76% of life loss prevented this way is lost over 4 seconds. So basically, when you take a big crunching hit, 40% of any life that you lose below half-life is immediately prevented, okay? Immediately prevented. And then that 40% damage, whatever you prevented, only 76% of that you'll take, and you'll take it over the next 4 seconds. And so, in layman's terms, this is really nice as a defensive layer to prevent you from getting one shot. All those big hits are going to get mitigated pretty significantly here, and a portion of that damage you're going to take over 4 seconds after you take the hit. So this is kind of nice because it gives you time now to react. When you take that big hit, you can now have time to like flask up or put some defensive layers on to mitigate the rest of that damage. And so this is kind of neat. I think as a softcore player, though, I don't know that I'll necessarily use it, but it seems to me that it seems useful in hardcore, but I don't know for sure. So if there's anyone who plays hardcore, leave a comment in the description below and let me know. Does this aura excite you or spell? Or is it just meh? Or is it a must-have in hardcore? I don't know the answer to that, so let me know. And then there's just another line here. Skills gain a base life cost equal to 40% of base mana cost while not on low life. Basically what that means is when you're not on low life, you're going to be using life. Your skills are going to use a life until you are low life. And so, again, only for builds, I think that actually have life above low life. All right, guys, that's it for this video. Let me know your thoughts on these skill gems because like I've been harping in the video, they seem insane to me, but new gems always seem insane to me. And then a lot of times I get jebaited into trying them, and then it doesn't work out, or they're not as strong as I think because I'm not a very good theory crafter. And so let me know, but aside from my league start plans, I'm definitely going to try both Reap and Corrupted Blood, or the one with the dot stacking, sometime in this league. So hopefully I can put something together, maybe put some build guides out, or you guys can see it on stream or what have you. Even Exsanguinate, I think I'll definitely try that one out too. They just all look super sweet. And so yeah, that's it. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you did, please like and subscribe. I also stream on Twitch Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. Come in and hang out. Times are in the description below. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.